Hi everyone. I am going to go over some answers from questions I've been getting about the final kitchen drawings, which is assignment 5 for 1490. The first question I've been getting is, what do we really show? So here's an example of a wall section with a cabinet on it. So when you cut your section, just like we do when we do a section cut of a room or of an entire building, like you see in the drawing for the cabin or other references, you see the inside of it. So that's the same concept. You're cutting a section through the wall. So what you're seeing is the studs, you're seeing some of the structure, you're seeing the insulation, and you're seeing the finished material and the cladding. And so you have two options for this. One, you could just poche this entire cavity. Or if you want, you can draft the actual components of the inside of the wall. That part's totally up to you, because really we're more focused on the cabinet side of things. So when you cut your kitchen, and we'll just, here are two examples, and this is pretty typical where you'd have a base cabinet and then an upper cabinet and then a countertop with a backsplash. That might not be your design. You might have open shelving. You might have a different design completely. So just, hypothetically pretend that this is your design. So the first thing you want to do is, figure out, how far exactly you're going to be drawing. If you notice in this upper area of the drawing, you're seeing the squiggly line, and you're also seeing it down here and over here. And that is because those areas hypothetically would keep on going. So in this section, we can assume that maybe this is a multi-story building. So this wall might go actually up much taller, but we're only drawing to here. And same here, the ceiling actually would go further across the whole room, but we're only going to capture it in this spot. And the same with the floor. So wherever you cut a drawing off to say, I'm only focusing on this part, but I want you to know that it does continue, and it's not just me not realizing that. There's this, it's not just a little squiggle. It is a line with three diagonal pieces and then another line. So if you look closely at many of the examples I've shown you in previous lectures, specifically Lecture 1, Part 3, and Lecture 1, Part 2, you're going to see examples of these cut lines, or a break line, I should say. So once you've figured out, how far you're going to go, now you can start drawing out your section. So the height of your countertop, and so you also know, so I would go ahead and I would just put a really light line there where the height is, and then the height of the bottom of your cabinet. So I would put another line there, and then another little line at the top of the cabinet. And then I would, continue the same at the bottom of the cabinet, and then the toe kick that is here. Not all cabinets have this. Most cabinets do, but some kitchens that are highly stylized may not have this toe kick because it impedes with an overall aesthetic. So that part I will leave up to you. You may be researching different aesthetics and design ideas. If you have an idea and you want to accomplish a certain look, meet me in an office hours or set a meeting, and we can go over your drawing together and figure out the right construction of how to indicate that in your drawing. So once you have those, you'll want to think about if you have a door and what kind of door, what's inside your cabinet. So maybe it's a door and you open it up and it has shelves. but it could also be drawers. So maybe it's a drawer front that you pull out and you have, a drawer frame. So there's multiple scenarios. In this example, we're just seeing a door that you open, and then there's a single shelf that makes two shelving areas, so to speak. So I always go, I start at the countertop and I go down. So what I would do is I would draw the countertop. So in this scenario, this countertop has this little backsplash here. And then it extends here. A lot of countertops will have just a minor backsplash that goes up a little bit. Some kitchens have it going up all the way, some halfway, some don't have a backsplash, some are painted. Again, that's a design aspect. So in this one, they have a small, maybe, let's see if they call out the dimension of it. I don't think they talked about how tall it is, but I'm guessing it is 3 or so inches right here. And then they even noted that there's a silicone sealant. So that is what they used to put there's granite, what do they call it? Slab granite countertop and backslash with bullnose. Yep. So that's a detail note you'll want to remember, because these are the types of notes you'll include. You don't need to get too detailed of, talking about the type of sealant. I'm more concerned with understanding the countertop and creating those design notes. You have construction classes later on in the program where you'll learn about this stuff much more detailed. So this is a point of exposure as well. So you can start taking notes and letting them sit in your brain so that when you see it again, you can, recall it, or at least know how to read them. So I draw out the little countertop design, and then I would just go down. So if you notice that there is a rectangle at play here down, you can go all the way down this rectangle and across. You're drawing the overall cavity of the cabinet, but that doesn't necessarily mean the entirety of the cavity, because the top of it is actually a solid frame. You actually have the rigid solid components of it, and that's important because not only does it provide the frame for the cabinet, it also provides the structure to hold that countertop slab up. So you'll want to indicate that. And I have been talking to many people about the including the hatching of materialities. We did go over different types of materials in the standards video and in a few other videos as well. So when you're thinking of your materials, reference those. The book is a great resource for images of materials because it goes in much more extensively. It almost has an inventory, so you can look up exactly what you're looking for. If not, you can always Google what an architectural hatch for concrete looks like, or for a specific type of marble or wood or whatever it is you're looking for. There will be some kind of symbol hatch for it. And so Google helps. I can help you with that, and your textbook can help you with that. So you want to think about this cavity. It looks like in this cabinet there's a drawer here, and so we're seeing the drawer front. We're seeing the kind of the bottom of the drawer, and then we're seeing a piece of wood here because drawers can only go back so far. They have to have something that they touch, otherwise I think we've all been there where things fall behind the drawers. So this is what that is trying to avoid. And then moving down in this cabinet, it does look like one of the modular units that has holes for the pegs. and in which case you could take this shelf and apply it to any of these holes. And so this is all really good, like plywood base and frame. This is all type good notes to be referencing when you do this. And then come over here, and this is about 3 inches for a toe kick. And then it goes down, and then you have bracing studs, 2x4s, and they sit here and they take the load of weight from everything above it. And then again, you are just hatching. So it looks like now we're seeing the flooring material, and that is 3/4 inch oak hardwood floor. And we even see a little bit of trim that separates the floor from this toe kick, which is a 3/4 inch quarter round. So it doesn't just go into a perfect 90-degree angle. It has a little bit of a curve there. And then we go up, and it is the exact same concept for the upper cabinets. The upper cabinets, note these dimensions. An upper cabinet is generally 1 foot, and as you know, the depth of a kitchen counter is generally 2 feet. Those are standards. Not every kitchen or instance is like this, but these are standards that would be good to follow. And you do the same. So this looks like it's a single door with some kind of detail. We don't see the detail drawing for this project. I'm not completely sure what that is, but it is decorative. But otherwise you would just draw this piece of wood. This looks like it's hardwood, solid wood, 3/4 inch oak panel doors. But you might actually have like plywood doors with a finish on them, or maybe they're panel doors with a paint finish, or maybe they're glass, or they're a different material. So think about that, and definitely review these notes. If you have never drawn insulation like this, it's really fun. So these, when I say insulation, I'm talking about basically that pink stuff that you see on the wall. And in this case, we have fiberglass insulation, which is pretty typical, especially here in Michigan. Here's another example of a cabinet section. So you can see immediately that there's a different type of graphic communication here. You're seeing more curvature lines for the notes. These symbols mean that these will line up to a schedule. We don't have a schedule for this project, but a schedule is essentially a list of symbols that then identifies what you're looking at. So they would go to a wall finish schedule and see what P1 is, and it's a paint. And then it would specify the paint. We did talk about schedules in lecture 1, part 3. So you can see there are some differences in this design. You're seeing a different type of handle coming out. You're seeing under cabinet lights. Let's see, but you're still seeing a drawer and this cabinet cavity. You're not really seeing the level of detail in the countertop. It's a smaller section, so you're just seeing granite countertop and you're just seeing the little line. So you're not really seeing all of the materiality. So if you notice, this is much larger, not because I have it zoomed in or scaled up to be larger. The section itself is larger. So we're seeing all of this detail. And then here we just don't see that. It's kind of like when you're in Google Earth, and the closer you get to a city, the more detail you see of it. You're still seeing the city regardless of how far away you are or how close you are. But the closer you get, the more detail you see. Same idea. And then Also notice how the dimensioning is done. So you will want to follow the standard protocol for dimensions, an overall dimension, and then break the dimensions down a little bit. You're dimensioning, the top cabinet, this middle area, and then the base cabinet, and then the toe kick. You do not necessarily need to heavily dimension this countertop edge because we are actually going to be doing an even more zoomed in detail of just this countertop edge, and that will tell us the dimensions. However, back up to this detail. So we're seeing this is a different style for a detail call out. It's not completely standard, but it does get the job done. So they're drawing a circle around the detail and they're saying it's detail B1. So our method of drawing details is that dashed box around where the detail is with the line, and then the circle that has the detail number and then the page number. And here are examples of more counter sections. However, these are not necessarily attached to walls. Both of these are islands, so to speak. And so you do have this component as well. It's called a millwork section. So even though a lot of these things are standard, islands are usually designed to fit the kitchen. And so you'll buy standard units, but the island itself may be constructed on site to fit those things. And so that is why it's called millwork and not casework. So we're seeing, and it's up to you where to cut this. If you want to meet and consult on the best place to cut any of your sections or your drawings, I'd be happy to meet with you. So this one's being cut right through an island, and we're seeing the sink. We're seeing how it is connected to the plumbing, and we're seeing inside this cabinet. It looks like this island is raised and with legs, so it's not flush with the floor. And then it does have an elevated counter with a flat surface here. On this drawing, we're seeing a counter section. It's a little bit different. We're not necessarily seeing any plumbing aspects. We're just seeing more of the same type of shelving units. We're seeing the peg holes. You don't have to do peg holes. You can do something a little bit more custom if you'd like. You can choose to do peg holes if you'd like. If you want to look up the specific type of cabinet or product that you're thinking of, chances are in their specification drawings on the website, they will have a section drawing of that unit that you can take their information and transfer it into your design since you're using that product. And then in this one, you're seeing it go over here. You're seeing the counter and then it goes down. So this could even almost be, this one could be multiple things. We actually don't know if this is a kitchen or not. It could be a reception desk. It could be just some kind of counter in a building, like along a wall, just, storage. So we don't actually know what this is because it's very universal. But again, you're seeing more styles of design communication. And then here we have a composition of really what we're kind of getting at with this assignment. You're seeing the typical counter section detail where it's cutting through the wall, it's cutting through the upper and base cabinet. You're seeing one of these detail callouts, and you're seeing dimensions with some notes. So this is exactly what you want to go for. You don't need all the colors or all of these technical details. I would stick more with the aesthetic of ones from the other pages. But this call out here is actually referencing this up here in the right hand corner. That is the edge of that counter. So now you can understand we're zooming into the city. Oh, this is Google Earth. This is a city. We're zooming into the neighborhood, which is the countertop edge detail. And every detail and construction for that is related to the type of countertop material. So it makes a difference if your countertop material is like a laminate versus a solid stone or a concrete or a wood. They all have different weights and requirements for how they are attached. So as you can see here, we have a stone fascia, which is just this front, and we're seeing how everything is in here. And it doesn't look like this is a drawer, so this is all solid. We are seeing a drawer right underneath it, but we just don't get that far in the detail. This detail is of the other edge, but we won't necessarily be focused on another detail. We're just doing this detail in the upper right-hand corner. And just as a reminder, many of these examples are using the metric system of measurement. There's nothing wrong with that. However, we are in the United States and we do use imperial. So don't get confused if you're seeing, 25 mm and or 8 mm or any of these 20 by 75 mm. Really, it's you're used to seeing like 3 inches. So stick with what you know. Don't just copy this because this is what it says. Make sure that what you are noting and drawing is specific and unique to your design. Here's another example of a countertop edge. This is a very different, type of countertop, but I thought it's a good graphic to really better understand the construction of how these come together. And then here are some examples of different profiles for countertop edges. So there's many, many more out there. There's examples in the book. So think about the material that you're including in your cabin or your kitchen design and what profile would be most appropriate for that. And we can talk about how to achieve that. And just because you are thinking of something that you don't see here doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or it's not possible. And then in the lower left-hand corner, we're seeing a counter be cut in half for the sake that there's enough room on the page to include both how the counter is connected to the wall and the countertop edge detail without having to fully draw the depth of the counter itself. So you're seeing more of these break lines. So this is another great example. You can see these are really curvy. But up here, you're seeing, in this upper left-hand corner, you're seeing these more, diagonal, rigid lines. And you're seeing that along this side too. So there's different ways of doing these. Like we've been studying all semester, design communication comes in many different forms. Here is an example of an elevation. We've done elevations before. Think about the orthographic assignment. An elevation is an orthographic projection. So if you think about a room as a box, and if you were to unfold it, you're seeing all 4 sides. You're seeing all 4 sides around the edges, and one of those sides would have, one of these elevations. So you're going to elevate that side of the box and draw what it looks like but flat. So notice how you don't see the depth of any of these countertops. You're just seeing the lip of the counter itself or the thickness of the counter. You're not seeing the depth of the shelves or of any of the pots and pans or details. And notice line weights. Line weights go a really long way in elevation drawings at communicating depth and importance. So for example, in a really light lane weight in this upper left-hand corner, you're seeing these dashed lines that look like diamonds on these cabinets. What that indicates is that the cabinets open. So they open where the point is where the hinge, the side where the hinge is. So there's 2 sets of cabinet doors. So they would each open right in the middle here. And same down here as well. And so that's kind of what this is like, a door swing, but for cabinets. Not all elevations have those. It really is dependent on who the drawing is for. You can see this one has a little bit more style to it. It has more materiality. It's showing, a coffee maker and bowls. So this is meant more for people who need a little extra detail in their drawing to understand what they're looking at. And you're not seeing dimensions either. But the others are a little bit more detailed. So here, a contractor would know exactly what this means. So you don't need to explain that or, just not include it. And then here, it is a little bit more obvious when you include a very noticeable piece of hardware, how the doors are going to be open. But if you see in these upper left-hand cabinets, there's no hardware. Maybe that means because it's not designed yet, or it's not visible, which is very possible. And then here are some examples of what that experiential kitchen view might look like. So there's no, right or wrong. It doesn't have to be to scale. It doesn't have to be like quote unquote drafted, with a straight edge and a parallel rule. It could be a sketch. You could take the elevation drawing and render it to give a feeling of that design. Or you can, project the whole kitchen in a little bit of a perspective, just so we understand what it feels like to be in the space. And this is, a stylized elevation as well. They've added quite a bit of accessory details just to, make you feel how this is. And, even in the detail of what types of cups people have, you get a feeling of, what that space feels like. So you can even see martini glasses. You can see some, utensils for cooking. And a tea kettle, whereas here you're seeing a fruit basket and paper towel rolls. So those are 2 different types of people. Not that they can't have those, but you do get a sense of who's living there. And it starts to paint the picture of who this is for. Or, this one has a lot of plants in it. So think about that. Think about your client or who this kitchen is for and how you would represent them or their identity or their design aesthetic or the concept in your experiential drawing. So that covers some of the questions I've been getting asked. Do not think that just because you didn't have assigned reading on certain pages doesn't mean that they're not useful. So the entire textbook is a guide. It doesn't read like a textbook. It reads like a guide. So use it like that. Look up in the index words that you're looking for. You can look up elevation. You could look up cabinet. You could even look up hatch. All of these things will take you to pages that will help guide you and be things that you can reference. Because with design, you can know as much as you know, but things are always changing. And really the best lesson you can learn is how to reference the information you need to know. Because new designs come up all the time and new materials, new ways of doing things. So you have to really more or less know how to find that information. So use that book. Use and abuse that book. All right. Thanks, everybody.